and they'll be just fine. But then today, things actually started happening. So what is the vibe as of today with a couple of deals getting done?
I think there's some surprise with Edwin Diaz's deal, not just because he went to the Dodgers, but because there was an expectation this thing could linger a little bit. And Kyle Schwarber was always going to be the one who broke the dam. A number of organizations from Baltimore to Boston to Pittsburgh to even the New York Mets were waiting on him a little bit because he was the belle of the ball. He was the big prize when it comes to sluggers, and to see him go back to Philadelphia was not a huge surprise. But to see him get 5 years at $30 million a year when he is a 33-year-old designated hitter, it was an unprecedented contract in that regard. Organizations will come up with any reason to pay a guy less. And Kyle Schwarber had his position going against him. He had his age going against him, and he defied that nevertheless because he was just so good last year and because he's so incredibly good in the clubhouse too.
All right, so now the last part doesn't necessarily work for that, but if Kyle Schwarber is worth $30 million a year for the next 5, certainly you could get away with paying $20 million a year for the next 5 or 6 to Ketel Marte, right? That seems like a bargain.
Yeah, it's not even that much. I think it's like a little bit over 18.
And the last year I think is only 11, right? Because it's a player option for like 11 and a half. Like,
correct.
That feels like a really good value. Brock and I were just sort of talking about it, and he was concerned about spending that much in a guy in his 30s. I'd sure rather spend $100 million on Ketel Marte than $50 million over the next 3 years on Jorge Polanco.
I don't disagree with you at all. The only difference is Ketel Marte is going to cost a lot in talent, too. Jorge Polanco is just money at this point. And at the same time, the money is even. And if you feel like you're in that championship window and the upgrade possibility is there, and I'll say this, Ketel Marte sure would be an upgrade at second base for the Seattle Mariners. And it's a deal that they can make, because what the Diamondbacks are looking for is pitching, right? And they're looking for close to, if not big league ready pitching, but they're looking for pitching. And, the Mariners, we saw it last year among their 5 starters, Emerson Hancock, Logan Evans. Now Cade Anderson's going to move quickly. Jerangelo Sanchez on his way. Ryan Sloan's not far away. If I'm the Diamondbacks right now, I'm asking for either George Kirby or Logan Gilbert. I would imagine that the Mariners would rather send out Bryce Miller or certainly Hancock or Evans or any of the minor league guys. But where they are right now, now's the time to strike. And if they have that money in their budget to cover a Ketel Marte contract, boy, put him in the middle of this lineup, and suddenly it looks even nastier than last year's, which is saying something.
So do you think it's possible?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think it's probable. We're still not sure whether Ketel Marte is going to get traded. I mean, the Diamondbacks want to, they're not punting. They're not starting from scratch. So taking a bat like that out of your lineup is a really tough thing to do. At the same time, other teams are understandably blocking. Ketel Marte's missed a lot of time. There were clubhouse issues in Arizona here. So I wouldn't say this is like a slam dunk thing, but man, when you have a talent like him, if you can bring him back home, what a great deal that would be for the Mariners.
Do you think getting the deals done, organization, relationship-wise, they did with the Diamondbacks to get both Naylor and Suarez and all the work that went into that, all the evaluations, all the kind of opening of the books and the valuations of different players, do you think that would benefit them more to consummate a deal here than maybe it would with others?
Sorry, I was looking at a text and I missed your question.
No problem.
Do you have to break some news right now?
Can I try again?
I'm just kind of curious if all of the groundwork they did to get the Naylor deal done and the Suarez deal done with that organization and kind of opening the books of the valuation and saying, okay, this is what we got. This is what you think. This is what you want, who you want. Do you think that could help consummate a deal with Marte, or is it just, all 29 other teams can do that rather quickly?
No, I think it only helps. If you have a relationship from past deals, then it's clear you have trust between the front offices. And a lot of times, trust is what gets these deals across the finish line. You go to familiar trading partners. You talk with people who you feel like you're not wasting your time with. There's only 24 hours in a day. There's only a few months in the off season. There's a finite amount of time to get something done. But I do think that while there is a slight advantage there, at the end of the day, talent talks. And whoever offers or meets Mike Hazen, the general manager of the Diamondbacks, asking price, is going to be the one who potentially gets Ketel Marte.
Jeff, what do you think is the market for Polanco? We've talked a lot about him being the pivot point for the Mariners this year. I've heard the number that $20 million a year floated around of what he might be looking for.
He's not going to get 20. He's not getting $20 million a year.
What could he get? What is that market? How serious are the Pirates? What should we know there?
I think the Pirates are pretty serious, especially now that they haven't gotten Kyle Schwarber. And they were genuinely serious there. I know everyone laughs. Like they had a good offer on the table. They were willing to go higher. Schwarber just wanted to go back to Philadelphia, and he got the number that he was looking for. But I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to be somewhere between 14 and 17 million a year for Jorge Polanco. And if there are two teams duking it out at the end, maybe it goes up $1 million a year. And it looks like it's going to be a 3-year deal, but something along the lines of 3 for 45 to 50. I think that's about right.
Brock, you interested in that?
You doing that deal?
No. Hard no. That's a hard pass for me. I would say no. Just the injuries and sort of the up and down nature of it, and just having to nurse them through it. I'm not really interested in ages 32, 33, 34 from that player. Although he fits the Mariners really well. Don't get me wrong. I love the flexibility, the switch hitting, second base, DH. He fits them great. But at that point, I would just much rather try to go after Ketel Marte, who's a better player and will be for longer and with less of an injury concern.
Be Ketel Marte, could be Brendan Donovan, it could be Jeff McNeil, it could be Jake Cronenworth. The thing about second base this offseason, guys, is that there are a number of abilities out there. And there are a lot of teams also that want second basemen, so I'm not suggesting it's going to be easy to land any of those guys. It's going to take something, but the trade market for second baseman is ripe right now. And, you start the year, I don't know if it's Ben Williamson, Colt Emerson platoon at third base, or if it's just Colt Emerson goes and wins the job outright in spring training, or maybe Williamson has a great spring training and they want to keep Emerson down. But there's value in having Emerson up to start the season because of the prospect promotion incentive pick. Mm-hmm. And if you start him on the roster at the beginning of the season, feels like you got to play him every day.
Can you help me understand how these deals get done? I remember Moneyball, and I've been Centel, Jeff, so I'm very careful. And I'm not going to use movies as the way that, the portrayal of Brad Pitt on the phone during the trade deadline and with all of that stuff. But do you have an understanding through your years of being around this of how actually the deals get done there? Are there different meeting rooms for the different clubs? Are there different, how does this ultimately, when we do see some things get done, how do they get hammered out?
It used to be much more face-to-face, but now there are hardly ever face-to-face meetings. You don't see executives down in the lobby, frankly, a whole lot. You don't see them too often out at the bar late at night. I respect the ones who are out there with us. Like, good for you for hanging with the regular people. But mostly it's text and phone conversations, and they're not doing Zooms between the teams. Those are reserved for players and for free agents. In this situation, it's pretty simple. Like, you tend to know what the other team is going to want from you. And it's just a matter of getting to the point of, am I comfortable potentially doing this deal? And depending on the organization, there are some that are much better deal makers, and there are some that frankly, whether it's getting cold feet or always trying to push for a little bit more at the end, have trouble closing a deal. So it all just depends on the teams that you're talking about. But in the case of Ketel Marte, I'm not breaking any news to you here. Jerry Dipoto is a deal maker. And Mike Hazen is a very pragmatic guy who has set a price, and if someone meets it, they'll make the deal.
Let's just go back to the market on a couple of these other guys, some that you mentioned and maybe one or two that you didn't, that I think are at the very least in the conversation for the Mariners. You mentioned Donovan in St. Louis. I know he's got a lot of suitors. What does it take? What is the market for Brendan Donovan?
I'm not going to say it's going to cost as much as Ketel Marte, but it's probably going to be pretty close.
Wow.
Just because in addition to being very good, he's not a hitter like Ketel Marte. I'll be clear about that. Brendan Donovan's bat is not Ketel Marte level. But Brendan Donovan plays second base. He plays left field. He plays third base. He plays a little bit of shortstop. He is a very high average, high on base, low strikeout hitter. And while, the power, it's more doubles power than home run power, but the big thing with him is you're getting 2 full seasons and they're cheap because he is still in arbitration. So you're getting a very cost-effective player there. And that's why Chaim Bloom's going to ask for a lot from him because, a bunch of teams look at his versatility and really appreciate the fact that they can move him around at different positions. And, he can hit righties and lefties, so there's no platoon issues. So if you've got another second baseman who crushes left-handed pitching, maybe you move move Donovan to left field. If you've got a left fielder who does it, then you move to second base. Like, there are just all sorts of opportunities in the lineup for Brendan Donovan, and he's going to play every day. He's going to be very good. But for the real question there is for a guy who's not a big slugger, who's never slugged over, I think 422, I think it is, in an individual season, are you really going to pay premium price for him?
What about the 2 older second basemen? They come in kind of different flavors, but Brandon Lowe and Jake Cronenworth.
Yeah, Brandon Lowe is, as long as he's healthy, he's really good, man. Now, he hasn't been healthy, but the 2 seasons where he's played more than 130 games, he's hit over 30 home runs. So he's more of an all-or-nothing type. He's going to have a low on-base percentage, but he's a guy who you can put in the 5, 6, 7 hole somewhere in there, and he's going to punish baseballs for you. Not great defensively. That's an issue. And beyond that, he's going to be a free agent after this season. Cronenworth, you have him around for a long time. Like, that's the question about Jake Cronenworth. Was he going to age? He's turning 32 in January. He's got I think he's signed through 2030. So this would be a long-term play. And it's at $12 million a year, which is reasonable for what he produces, but he's a guy who also can move around the infield, can play some third, can play some second, can play some first, but at the end of the day, he's probably a second baseman for this team, and not great defensively, but another guy who's just very solid and much more of an on-base threat than Brandon Lowe would be.
So let me just ask you this. I'm sorry to hog this, Brock, but I just wanted to kind of run through a bunch of these names. If you are Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander, and you know that you've got to get something done, soon, where are you focusing your attention? Polanco at, let's call it $14, $15, $16 million a year. Marte, Donovan, Lowe, Cronenworth. I'll throw in the 2 right fielders or outfielders, both Jarren Duran and Stephen Kwan. Where are you focusing your attention? Who is the best fit of that group for this team? And maybe I should throw Byron Buxton in there as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Buxton's going anywhere, so we'll take that one off. I think if you're the Seattle Mariners right now, you are big game hunting. You You are going for the best players available because you were that close to getting to the World Series last year, and the team that would just edge things out against you got beaten in the same fashion in the World Series. So you are a true, legitimate World Series contender, and I think if you get Ketel Marte, you probably go into the season as the American League favorite. Depending on what Toronto does, if they go and sign Kyle Tucker and Bichette, then maybe that's a little bit different story. But right now, I think the Mariners can put themselves in position to be the favorites in the American League entering the 2026 season. And so if I'm running the club with the farm system that they've got, with the ability to move a couple of pieces and really not feel it too badly, I'm doing everything I can to get the best player possible.
If Schwarber goes for $150, what does Bregman and Tucker go for? And are they in any way a possibility for the Mariners?
No, I don't think any of them. I mean, maybe John Stanton wakes up one morning and says, hey, we should probably put a little more money, invest a little more money into this team that has a chance to win the first World Series in franchise history. That would be nice. That would be admirable. That would be great for all of the fans who have listened to buffoons come onto this program before and suggest that they should just be happy with what they've got. But in reality, I don't see any of those things happening. Bregman's going to be interesting. I'll be curious to see just how big Detroit is in and just how real but he's got a home back in Boston if he wants it. Tucker, I'll say this. Kyle Tucker is going to get at least 10 years and at least $300 million. And it's just going to be a question of how much does he get bid up from there. Now that the Phillies got Schwarber, I'd be surprised to see them go after Tucker. The Blue Jays, I've said this from the jump, the Blue Jays seem to be the favorite there right now. But I think there are other possibilities as well. And who was the third you mentioned?
Bichette.
Bichette's going to do fine. I don't know if it's going to be in Toronto. I don't know if it's going to be in Boston, but we saw what he did during the World Series this year, and that was not at 100%. And considering just the paucity of bats on the free agent market this offseason, Bichette's going to do okay. Cody Bellinger's going to do fine. The question, I'll be very curious to see what happens with Pete Alonso. I don't know where that market's going right now. Seeing how the Mets respond after the best team in their division went out and re-signed the MVP runner-up who hit 56 home runs last season, and the team that's won 2 consecutive World Series went out and signed arguably the best closer from the Mets, it feels like the Mets are going to go on a little bit of a run here. And I don't know if it's via trade or, a big signing like Cody Bellinger, but the Mets are going to have to make some moves because this was not a great day for them.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you for all of this time. So gracious, as busy as you are, and especially, the tough spot you find yourself in. The Chiefs are cooked. They're done. You've had this unbelievable run for all these years, and boy, they're going to have to rebuild and start over. So sorry about that.
Not having to start over. I don't want to hear that.
Wow.
Start over.
That feels unnecessary.
Andy's done.
Over.
Andy's done. Kelsey's done.
Wow.
The whole thing's Chris Jones is done. Yep, you had a heck of a run.
Wait, hold on a second. Are you breaking some news to me? Andy Reid's done?
No, I'm not breaking any news. I'm not breaking any. It just
Chris Jones is done?
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're done. Kind of feels
Just
like
feels
the
that
NFL
way.
just turns over.
It just feels
we
that
felt
way.
this way in 15 and 16 with our beloved Seahawks. Father Time wins. He jumps on the back and he wins. He wins.
I don't disagree with you on that, but I think Brett Beach has done a pretty darn good job of team building to sustain it as long as he has. And I know that when you have a quarterback the caliber of Mahomes, then that helps. But
just enjoy watching the
Mahomes
playoffs from the couch. That's all I'm saying. Just enjoy watching
Brock,
the playoffs.
it is very
from the
early
couch.
for that. I would like to distance myself from all of this.
Brock, what crawled up your butt this morning,
Seriously.
man?
Yeah, well, you started this by saying "shut up, Salk." You can end it by saying "shut up, Brock" if you want.
I would gladly shut up, Brock.
Hey, Jeff, seriously, thank you. We really appreciate you giving us the time with everything going on. I hope the last 24 hours or so are active and interesting, and we'll talk to you at some point down the road. Appreciate you, man. Seriously.
Look forward to it, boys, and to everyone listening. An early happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.
You too, Jeffrey. There you go. There's Jeff Passan, one of our absolute favorites.